Spark your creativity as you reflect and prepare to enter a new year next week. Here is a roundup of 10 underrated, out-of-the-box marketing tips from our brilliant podcast guests for you to try in 2023. Tip number 1 is from Hala Taha, episode 126. Podcast tips you won't hear anywhere else. How Hala Taha's show ranks number 1 in education across all apps and makes 6 figures a year. I know that early on you used, I think I read somewhere that you used Gary Vee's audience, who he obviously has a giant audience, right? On LinkedIn, but also on most platforms. And you were able to leverage that traffic and bring those people over to your LinkedIn profile. So tell us a little bit about that, because I think your creative thinking, your scrappiness is really inspiring for our listeners.
Yeah. So basically, on LinkedIn especially, lots of people join LinkedIn and they're joining for a job and then they never sign on again. And there's lots of dead connections on LinkedIn. So when I was trying to grow my following on that platform, I knew that. And I knew that I didn't want to just aimlessly follow people that I didn't know if they engaged. And I knew that if I wanted to go viral and if I wanted to grow my page really fast, that I would need to have active, engaged users in my network. And so what I did was target people who I thought were my lookalike profile. So Gary Vee at the time, now we're like, competitors on LinkedIn, but at the time he was like way bigger than me, right? And he was like this huge podcaster and he'd always go viral. And like, I thought that his content was very similar to mine and like his following would really like my stuff. And so I just got creative. Everybody who liked or commented, and I prioritize comments because they're worth more in the social world. Anybody who commented on his post, I would send a DM and an invite. And I'd invite them to connect. And I'd say, hey, what's going on? My name is Hala. I noticed you like Gary Vee's content. If you like his content, you're going to like mine too. I said, if you like his content and podcast, you're going to like mine too. Mm-hmm. So nobody was doing this at the time. Now people do this all the time because I've been sharing this strategy, and more people do it. So people were really like intrigued and they're like, oh, thank you so much for thinking of me. And like, so happy to connect. And then I'd say, well, so nice to meet you. I'd love for you to listen to my podcast. Here's the link and let me know what you think. And if you like it, drop me a review. And so I would start these organic conversations. And it did a few things that really helped me. First of all, and I didn't know this at the time, but the way that LinkedIn works is that if you DM people, they're going to consider you to be like a closer friend. So my stuff started to pop up in everyone's feed more because I was DMing all these people. So that's number 1. Number 2 is like psychologically, these people were attached to me because I was like up and coming. I had the guts to introduce myself, to tell them that I think they're going to think I was giving them something for free. I wasn't selling. I was just connecting and being genuine. So these people felt compelled to like support me and be my fan. And I have so many people who are like, Hala, I've been following you for 3 years. Like, I can't believe how much you've grown. And this is incredible. And there's so many people like that who just like love to support me because I really did it like one by one. And a lot of people know that. So a lot of people felt like really compelled and attached to me and supported me and engaged on my content. And then the other thing is that because I had acquired so many of Gary Vee's followers, so like I probably acquired like 9,000 of his followers. Every time I would comment on his post, even if it was like a picture of a cat or something, I would get like 100 likes and it would be the top comment. And so like Claude Silver from VaynerMedia came on my podcast because I was so visible on Gary Vee's like profile. I'm sure Gary Vee knows about me, but more importantly, a lot of people were curious and they were like, who's this girl that keeps being the top comment on Gary Vee's stuff, and would follow me that way. And I got traction that way. So it's a great approach. And really if you step back, you could do this on any platform. The key is like, you want to actually invite engaged, active users to your network who are interested in similar content. That's like the key strategy. And so I've taken that strategy and used it on many different platforms and in many different ways. And so, like I said, the key is finding those people who do engage on content and then inviting them to your network.
Tip number 2 is from Kim Lewis, episode 167. After rejecting a Shark Tank investment, she raised $1 million in 4 hours through this crowdfunding strategy.
So Chromic started as like a DIY box, like a Blue Apron, but for hair. And when I first launched it, I sold 1 box to my cousin. She loves me, and now she's our director of operations in our warehouse. So it's so funny, little did she know she was investing in both of our futures. But I I was trying to get press to cover it. Nobody would cover it. And then I went back and learned how to actually pitch journalists. Like, it's not just like, I'm going to throw up and put everything in your inbox that I want you to know about my brand and what I'm launching, because nobody cares. You have to, they care about getting eyeballs for them. Is this going to get them clicks? Is this going to get them shares? Is this going to be newsworthy? Because that's what their boss cares about. So I ended up learning how to write copy for a good headline. Basically putting it in the subject heading. And then I read like the hardest part about pitching journalists is rereading their previous work. You don't want to send them something and you've never read anything that they've written before. So I had to go back and I would use this app called BuzzSumo, where I could type in like my category, like DIY hair care, and then see what the top articles in that in the last 12 months. And you want to do like the last 6 months, really, because people switch jobs a lot in journalism. And then I found, okay, Refinery 29, Jessica from Refinery 29. Let me read her work. Read an article about DIY masking, DIY oils, DIY this. So then when I'm actually pitching her, I can say, hey, Jessica, I read your article on DIY oil, DIY mask, and I think you would love to write about our DIY subscription box. So the first one for curly hair, we already have Nikki May or Natural Chica on board. She's going to be our first box, and Hey Friend Hey for our second one, which I paid for. And I think it's going to attract this kind of attention. I think you would love to cover it. Everyone else had told me no, but Jessica from Refinery 29 told me yes. And then when she said yes, I went back to Essence, back to Ebony, back to, I was replaced with, hey, Refinery 29 is covering our launch. We'd hate for you to miss out. And then we got like 7 people, PR articles to cover it when we launched, right? And we sold 100 boxes that first day. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is how you launch. I feel like I had unlocked something. I was like, this is it.
Notice, and I'm sure you guys caught this, but just for those of you who didn't quite catch this, I want you to put this down. The people that said no to Kim, right? She went back and said, wait a second, now I have somebody on board to do this article and I don't want you to miss out. Oh my gosh, the power of that FOMO saying, look, I know you said no, but I want to give you one more chance because now we have validity and credibility on our side with a big fish, right? So keep in mind when you're going out there pitching yourself, if you get 100 no's, you really just need that one yes. So keep believing in what it is that you're doing. And like Kim said, manufacture that momentum, whatever it looks like, whoever you think you had the best shot at getting that first yes from, whether it's your loyal customers, whether it's, your cousin who's like, I will buy your DIY box because I love you. Like whatever that looks like, go to the person or go to the group of people who you think are going to invest first and then use them to piggyback, right? It's like a constant piggyback effect. Tip number 3 is from Natasha Samuel, episode 138. Get invited to speak on top stages and shows with this Instagram strategy. No pitching required. Speaking of, building relationships, we talked about building relationships with your own audience, but as far as industry connections, because I know that you said that helped you a lot, like even the example that you gave earlier of Tyler introducing you to the people at Social Media Examiner, which has led to many collaborations with them. How do you go about creating authentic, non-transactional relationships within your industry, especially maybe thinking from the perspective of people who are listening to the show who may feel imposter syndrome, like maybe think back to who you were like years ago when you're like, why would these people like even bother to talk to me, right? Like, how do you approach those conversations? What's that first step that you can take to introduce yourself to someone without coming across, I guess transactional or pushy in any sort of way?
Absolutely. And I feel like it kind of reminds me of how I started my relationship with Later is I just started like engaging like I would normally do, which I know sounds so simple. But I just put them on my radar and I was consistently engaging with them. I was sharing about them. I was tagging them. So I feel like the same thing applies to people that you want to have those deeper relationships and connections with. Watch their stories and reply authentically, of course. Go to their content and hype them up. I think we underestimate when like someone's little username and photo is consistently popping up in the DMs and comments, like you start to note and remember that person. And you may even head over to their Instagram page and follow them and build that relationship. So that's always the first step. And I think if I already have maybe a common common ground, like maybe someone that we have interrelated to, or maybe I'm just really familiar with something that they do and really enjoy, I will just tell them. Like an example that I can think of is the app Life Lapse. It's a stop motion app and it was really popular at the time. It was actually being shared by brands like Later, and I was using it as a social media manager. And I was really small at that time and they were, a pretty big app. And I just remember I really like this app. I just like want to tell them that I really like this app. So I just messaged them and I was like, I love this app. And the founder, Sarah, responded and she was like, hey, I love that you love this app. I would love to collaborate eventually. And like, we've been friends for years since then.
Wow.
So I think it just shows how like just simply like being kind and being thoughtful with how we are interacting with people is really important. And just thinking of ways of how you can maybe share the stage, even if you feel like your audience is so small. I know even now that never deters me from going live with someone or collaborating with someone on a project ever. If you have a really engaged community and your content is amazing and you are serving value, that is almost even more invaluable than going to someone that has a bigger audience, right? So I think often we think because we're smaller that people won't want to be in the same room with us, but I think that's often the contrary. So I used to do a live series where I'd ask people to come live with me, and people love doing that. And I feel like that's such a great way. It gets in front of both audiences. You're getting in front of a new audience. So those are just a few ways that I was just like, I'd go live with people, I'd DM them, I'd comment on their stuff and follow and just like hype them up. That was pretty much it.
I am such a fan of simplicity. So these tips resonate with me so much. Takeaway number 3 for you listeners who are taking notes right now, I think, is to not underestimate the power of gratitude. Exactly what Natasha said. I have felt that on my side as a creator, as a business owner. There are thousands of people, right, who have listened to our podcast over its lifetime. And I could probably list on one document the number of people who have actually taken the time to reach out via DM and say, I listened to this episode today and it really resonated with me. Here's why. Thank you for producing this content. That one tiny interaction, that one just extra step to share gratitude, it makes such a difference. I remember those people. I remember the people who are always showing up in the comments. I remember the people who tag us and share us in their stories. And you never know how you expressing your gratitude to someone, even if it doesn't lead to anything in that moment, how it might bring you back top of mind for an aligned opportunity down the road. So I think that's my homework assignment to you listeners today is like, take one moment today and think of a person, a brand, a company that has had a positive impact on your life, and just take 30 seconds today to send them a DM and tell them, hey, this is what's resonating with me. Thank you for the work that you're putting out into the world. And, maybe share it to your own audience and just see where a tiny step like that can lead you if you consistently do it. So thank you for that reminder, Natasha. I think I really needed to hear that today too. Tip number 4 is from Laura Belgray, episode 171. 6-figure affiliate payout with a 6K list. This email marketing campaign earned Laura Belgray the #1 affiliate spot. Just to set the scene for our listeners, at this point in your business, where did these 6,000 subscribers come from? Were these mostly your clients? Were these people who signed up for a newsletter, students? Like where did these people come from?
A lot of my leads I was very lucky to get from, you know what? A lot of them came from before the Copy Cure even came out, from Marie putting my testimonial on her site and then also mentioning me in the resources for B-School. So it wasn't there for all to see, but once you are in B-School, you might see my name as a good copywriter and sign up through there. So I think that drove a lot of traffic to my site. And, what's funny is when Marie first asked me to give her a testimonial back in the day for her life coaching site, I balked. I was like, I would love to as a friend, but I just don't feel comfortable with all these people. Like if people in my professional world see it on this life coaching site, they might think it's cheesy or something, and it might not be good for my reputation. She's like, totally get it. That's just fine. And then later on down the road, I was like, oh, that's just silly of me. I mean, who's going to see it anyway? and came back and gave her testimony.
Little did you know.
Little did I know. And little did I know, like, how incredibly powerful that would be for driving traffic. So a lot of them came from, I would say most of them probably came from B School and from Marie's site. And giving testimonials is a great way to get traffic to your site. People look you up when they see your name on someone else's program or site or anything like that. So that's the answer to that.
I was just going to say, what a cool visibility hack. I don't think this has ever come up in a podcast conversation, but now that you're saying it, I actually can totally relate to that because I am a testimonial for my friend Haley Burkhead's program. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a DM randomly from someone being like, hey, I came across your page because I saw your face and your story presented for this program. I'm thinking about joining. So I thought I would check out your profile and what you're up to. And now I have XYZ question. And that is so interesting. Okay, so everybody listening, this is a sign that if you are part of a program and you have had some success with it, even if you haven't been reached out to by the program creator. I know that as fellow program creators, we always love getting testimonials from our students. So don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, I actually had great success with, your course or your program. And I would love to, volunteer my story as a testimonial if you'd be interested in sharing it on your sales page or maybe in your emails. And like Laura said, even if they're not linking back to your website or your social channels per se, people are curious and they're going to likely Google you to make sure you actually exist as a real person and you're not just like a stock image that they slapped on the website, right? And so you never know where that could lead. That's brilliant. I love that tip.
It's true. And I just want to jump in and say, we don't just like it or love it. We live for it. When you reach out and say, loved your course so much, I got X result. Like, thanks to your course, I did X, Y, and Z, or just love it, especially if you reach out with results. We live for it. It's such a win-win because people will come seek you out and maybe end up on your list.
So smart. Tip number 5 is from Dana Snyder, episode 153. Copy the $800 podcast launch plan that debuted her show at number 29 on the marketing charts.
Walk us through, if you, as much as you can remember, what was the week by week or day by day play of exactly what you rolled out to make this debut possible?
Yeah, I would say, so I wanted to do the theme of the birthday party. So that was the first thing. And I put together a couple unique facets. So I wanted to ask my email, and also my email list at the time, I think was around 5,000. Now I'm at 7,000, just over. So again, this was in March. So I asked my email list to give me their addresses through Postable, totally free tool. And I wanted to do a snail mail, direct mail piece, which was so not me for digital marketing. So it was a bit of that surprise and delight factor to get something in the mail from me. And so I pitched this tool that I'd heard of called Handwritten. And if anybody wants to know, I do not get any kickback from this, but if you use code Dana, DANA, it'll give you 2 free credits for a card. So just a freebie. So they're amazing because basically Handwritten is you can design the front and the back of this card that goes out, but it looks like it's written with an actual pen on a machine and you can pick the handwriting you want. So on the front, I designed this invite essentially. So alongside with the launch, I did a Zoom event and I had a QR code on the front of the card that people could register for the Zoom birthday party. And what I said was during the virtual birthday party, I would do like a live Q&A. Handwritten got to come on board. They gave me a bunch of free credits to send out all of these cards to people. And I was going to do prizes. So for anyone who left a review on the 16th specifically, I would give 5 winners different prizes. Essentially, I called them birthday presents. So like I was giving to them on my birthday and it was 5 of my favorite things. So it was very like useful. I know I did a planner. I think I did a candle. I think I did like bath bombs. I think I did a book and something else. So it was really fun items. So the handwritten, I had a website designer craft a new website page for me that became the home base. And I think that's really important that you make it very simple for people to be able to find exactly what they're looking for when it comes to your show and have it look appealing. And that was a next big portion. I think everybody's seen, I think you maybe commented on it in our Voxer, my suit that I wore. So my brand colors are like a rusty, like yellowy orange, blue, and like a rusty red. I don't know how else to describe it. Orange. And so I found this bomb suit for $40.
So good at it, by the way. I mean, if you haven't seen the pictures, just go to her Instagram. It'll be linked in the show notes. Go take a look around. I loved that photo shoot. It was so you. You could just feel your energy radiate off the screen.
I had 2 outfit changes. I think we had 2 hours. It was so fast. And we were just trying to get a bunch of different shots. And what we did was, because the time was so limited, we created a shot list ahead of time. We looked at my website of how it was going to be designed and knew, okay, we needed certain vertical images, certain horizontal images. I would need some for Instagram, some for emails, just thinking some for literally the card that I was sending out, right? That snail mail piece. So we really thought about, okay, what am I doing in this shot? What props might I need in this shot? And so it's just, I was thinking about all the ways that would really personalize it. And I think that content, oh my God, Ellen, has gone so far. So far. I use it for so many pieces of content. So, yeah, I was planning the photo shoot, getting out the snail mail piece. I also created, and with that photo shoot content, I created Instagram story graphics for friends of mine in the industry to send out on my behalf. And I also did IG posts and a LinkedIn graphic, all of them with copy and links. And I sent that to them to be like, would you share this with your audience? So did a little bit of that. I changed all of my headers on Facebook and LinkedIn. Those are my 2 main places. I'm not really on Twitter very much. So I changed all of my headers to showcase that the podcast was launching. I had a header on my website that my podcast was launching, and I did tease my trailer. I believe it was a week in advance. So just to let people know, hey, this is what the show is going to be about. This is when it's coming out. Go ahead and subscribe now. So I did tease that in advance. And then I had 3 episodes drop the day of on the 16th. I'm trying to think of what else that I did. I think those were the main things.
I mean, it's such a comprehensive strategy, I think, that you really employed here, because you use word of mouth traffic, right? From existing relationships, from friends and peers who wanted to support your launch. You also did the pattern interrupt, like you mentioned. You're a digital marketer, but you sent snail mail, and what a lovely surprise it is to receive anything tangible in the mail from someone who you may only have an online relationship with. I always such a delight and very unexpected and very rare.
And people were taking photos of that and sharing it on their accounts to be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool.
Tip number 6 is from Jaclyn Johnson, episode 161. Create and cultivate sold out a 1,500 person event that made 7 figures with 0 ads. Let's talk about the launch timeline, because I know for myself, like as someone who's newer to producing live events, even for a 50-person event, there's so much planning that goes into, the before. So for your February 2020 event, how far out did you guys start promoting this conference?
Yeah, so we would book the venues out a year in advance, like typically a year in advance. Mostly because venues of that size are very hard to find, and then oftentimes they're booked up, whether it's weddings or concerts or whatever it might be. So we got into the pattern of doing it a year in advance. We would start marketing the event 6 months in advance. So it's a long lead time leading into an event, but the way I sort of think about it is it really has to be this repetitious thing that you're getting out in the world. One thing that we were really good about doing was we would launch an event right after an event. So basically our launch strategy was always tied to the end of one event. So the reason for that was you will never have the most amount of eyeballs on your site than during an event day, because we were notorious for kind of going viral on Instagram, all of the images, who was there, all your favorite creators, whatever. And if you weren't familiar with the company, you're like, what is this? So you'd go on the tag thing, you'd click on the link, and then immediately there was something to sell you on an event because you clearly had missed the other event, right? So it's like you are having FOMO about the existing event, and then we're launching this future event. So that's kind of how we did our launch strategy, was always this like 6-month tier. And sometimes we'd have multiple event launches going at once. But that was typically the timeline we would use.
That's so smart. So you're riding the wave of momentum from the in-person event to kind of push that trajectory out to that, upcoming event. Tip number 7 is from Michelle Kwok, episode 127, Unscalable Strategies That Actually Create Scale, How Flick Grew to 10K plus members in a Surprising Way. Do you have any other strategies that you tried or implemented on your way to growing to 10K outside of grassroots conversations and network sharing that you want to impart on our listeners? Just creative, out of the box ways that you guys got in front of new users, had people buy into your mission.
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of things. I don't know if I can remember all of them, but a really, really, really important one I would say is we view building a startup as a collaborative event. And so it's not like we view anyone as a competitor. I think if you're growing in the startup economy, everything is collaborative. So we reached out to a lot of people, a lot of potential partners, a lot of networks that were doing something that was similar to us. And we were like, hey, we want to collaborate with you. You're not currently doing this, but we want to bring value to your network. How can we bring value to you as well? How do you see yourself fitting into our network? And, how can we make this a very, very collaborative thing across all of our community partners? And so we built out this community partner program that was a mutual marketing program. And when we were launching, we also launched with probably like 20 to 30 other community partners. And so we integrated into their networks just as much as they integrated into ours. And so it's really just like there are so many networks out there that probably already have your target user there already. And so definitely leaned into that. We leaned into, again, our community. We did a lot of user generated content. We wanted to be able to amplify our founders or the stories of our apprentices like as much as possible. And the scalable way that we found to do that was, I didn't have time to write every single blog, but if users were willing to write their own blogs and tell their own stories, which was better anyways, because they know their stories the best, then we would publicize them, publish them across our blog, across our social channels, and inevitably they would also share the story that was published on our site and easy clicks onto our site. We did a lot of like co-partnered events. So with similar community partners, if they were hosting an event, we would just like become a partner on it and also help them source attendees. And so that wasn't a huge heavy lift for us, but then we got our name in a lot of different places. Like I said, we reached out to a lot of university clubs that were very up our alley, and a lot of them just put us in their newsletter, and that wasn't like a huge heavy lift. We had student ambassadors at universities, and they were able to put that on their resumes, and I became like a reference for a lot of these people. We tried a lot of things.
I love that.
Yeah, it's never ending, right?
Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, it makes sense because connection is that thread that really sparked this whole idea. And so this collaboration and community centric strategy makes a lot of sense for what you guys are building. Tip number 8 is from Diane Armitage, episode 142, Starting Over, Scaling a New Business from 0 to 60K Months. Can you give us an example of an outside of the box strategy that you've used with a client before to, like you said, to exponentially grow their business? And I specifically wanted to ask you this because, like you said, you have decades of experience in marketing, but you've seen so many different progressions of marketing strategy. And as new technology emerges and new platforms emerge, you've been able to adapt to those. But I think that what I love about your skill set is you also know so many different ways to grow a business outside of social media marketing. So I want to hear, like, what is one interesting outside of the box strategy that you have successfully used for a client before?
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's kind of fun. It's like, for instance, I was working with a giant real estate agent, huge. And he was at the point, he was selling about 100 homes a year, which was gigantic at the time. He wanted me to get him to 400 homes a year. So we started kind of working together on that, right? And he was a huge Jay Abraham fan too. So, the one thing I learned from Jay that was so smart was to look at other industries to see what they're doing and what they're succeeding at, because your industry gets so stuck in a box that you don't think about, oh my gosh, I could actually take that idea and apply it here. So when we were in the seminars with Jay, he would like have people come up and talk about their issues, and he would be in the hot seat, and they'd be from all kinds of different industries, and he would come up with other ideas for them, right? So I remember sitting at a stoplight in Denver when I lived in Denver, and there was a giant funeral procession going by. And all the traffic stopped and all the cars are moving slowly. And at the time, we were trying to figure out how to get out of the open house thing because, the agent goes and sits in an open house for 4 hours. The owners have to be out of the house. Nobody likes it. The agents by themselves, the people who come up to the house know that they've got an agent sitting there with fresh baked cookies. They don't really want to go in there and like get jumped on. So I thought, oh my God, why don't we make an open house tour? So make it like a funeral procession. So instead of just having one car with your buyers going into a house, put together a procession of buyers who will go from house to house to house, right? So you see like 10 homes in an afternoon. You're in and out in 10 minutes because you know if you want a home or not in 10 minutes. And it only keeps the sellers out of the house for 20 minutes tops. And you have like 20 cars all rolling in, right? So you're bringing all these buyers in at once, which is super impressive to the seller. And you're creating competition between the buyers as well, right? So the first time we started it, we put it in place. We had them all meet us at Walmart, and there were like 25 cars. So it was awesome. It was the best way for him to get other listings. It was the best way to get FSBOs, for sale by owners. It was a fun process. Eventually we added a mortgage person to the back of the line because people wanted to get qualified quickly in order to put in bids. And, then we would stop halfway through and everyone would get snow cones or ice cream cones, and we'd get someone sponsoring that. It was really just like this party, right? And it was amazing what it did because it was free publicity. The papers were talking about it, and it was really fun.
Tip number 9 is from Rachel Hollis, episode 156. Real Talk with Rachel Hollis, the full scoop behind her first #1 New York Times bestseller.
So I started this campaign and I was like, okay, what we gave people last time, phone, wallpaper and, those kind of things, it's nice, but that's not what's going to really elevate. And what I know to be true, I'm just going to keep coming back to this over and over and over, is if you take care of your community, like with intention, with heart, not because you're hoping to get something back, but if you take care of your community, they take care of you. So I was like, okay, in business, there's this concept of like, how do you take away any fear of not getting an ROI? So if someone wants a return on the investment, how do I create a deal that is so fantastic for someone that they would be crazy to not do it, that they have to take advantage? And I thought, well, if I could give people something, if I could offer so much value that it is way above and beyond the price of a single book, well, then you'd have to pre-order because you'd be like, holy crap, she's giving away Birkin bags. If you pre-order her, you're like, we got to get in on that. So I just thought, okay, what can I offer that's really, really, really good that you can't say no, that I remove any fear of investment for you? And the second option was like, how could I create something that I could do at scale, right? So if I said, hey, Ellen, if you pre-order, I'm going to come to your house and hang out with you for an hour and braid your hair, that's probably worth something to someone, but not scalable. I can't do that on a large quantity by myself. So I came up with this idea to teach a class. I know that one of the strongest things I can do is teach on stage. I produce really big conferences for women. Like you said, I'm doing a tour this fall. It's one of my spiritual giftings, and I've worked really hard to get good at that. So I was like, okay, I could teach a class. I could do it on video, which means I would need to record it one time. It would take me a couple hours, but then I would have this thing for her. And typically in the personal development industry, for people who do things like that, that course could be anywhere from $150 to $3,000, depending on what you're teaching. So I was like, I'm going to make a course that's, I think, worth $150. I'm going to teach for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm going to give her all my ideas, and it's going to be on a topic that's connected to this book, so that she'll pre-order the book just to get the class. She might not even be a reader. She might not want any part of this book, but she'll do it because she wants this video course. So it's like just a win for everybody. You're getting this great value for the investment of a book, which might be, I think at the time was like $19.99. And it just exploded. It was just, I don't know if anyone had done something like that before, at least maybe not in my community or not with a female author. And it was huge. So that was the pre-order campaign that did $275,000, which is bananas. And it's here on my wall, which I'll show you. So my New York Times plaques are on my wall, but the Girl Stop Apologizing debuted at #1 on New York Times. And the thing that I have framed here is that Girl Stop Apologizing is #1 and Girl Wash Your Face is #2, which is pretty freaking epic.
The 10th and final tip is a clip from our in-person event this summer, Let's Get Visible, a live panel conversation with 5 visibility experts on making your brand known, loved, and built to last. This panel featured myself and 4 of my close business friends, a group we've dubbed the Traveling Blazers. And yes, that's totally a play on the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. To access the full recording of our panel conversation, where we compile visibility strategies from our respective areas of expertise, media, mindset, personal branding, paid ads, and SEO, type in ellenyin.com/visible.
My tip would be to utilize the real estate that is your email signature. And not just for like, here's my website and here's my Instagram, but like, do you have a lead gen or an offer that you can put in there? So for example, I have in my email signature, want to learn how I earn 6 figures in recurring revenue through SEO? Sign up for my free webinar series. Think of how many emails that you send every day. Like, I'm responding to people with a decline. I'm responding to people, scheduling things. I'm talking to people. I'm pitching people. Like, you really don't know, like, the person that you might reach that's looking for that exact thing. Like, a PR brand pitched me for something, and it turns out that the gal that sent me that email, she doesn't really want to be at that agency anymore. She wants to start her own blogging business. Here's this beautiful webinar that will teach you how you can use SEO to start your blog. So that's also just like something you can do 5 seconds.
Yeah, so powerful. And sorry, can I quickly, because I know you own a yoga studio. Literally just had a client who owns a yoga studio in Nashville do this, and she added her little, at the tagline, it was her introductory week-long offer. I forget what it was, like a week for $10, something like that. 5 signups in that one day from that email signature. So it works. It works.
I call it the PS. So if you've ever gotten an email from me, from my personal Gmail, not like my mass marketing emails, you'll notice it says PS, and I have a call to action there, and it's huge.